for more on this, we're now joined by Rev Moss Ntlha, General Secretary of the Evangelical Alliance of South Africa, and he joins us via our video link. Reverend, thank you so much for joining us this evening here on SABC News. Perhaps let's start off here. While we do know that the war rages on in Gaza, one would ask what prompted this visit, especially during this time?
Thank you, Mbali, for having me. What prompted the visit is a couple of reasons. One is that we've been in contact with people in Palestine who have expressed a sense of hopelessness, a sense that in this moment where they ought to be looking forward to having Christmas celebrations, they feel unable to do so. And they feel that part of the reason they are unable to do so is that many Christians around the world feel obliged to give full support to Israel for some kind of religious reasons. And so because of that, they feel almost orphaned by the Christian world at a time when they desperately need to know that there's somebody out there who cares. And so we felt that it would be important for Christians who understand what it means to go through the situation of colonization, of dispossession of land, theft, such as we've experienced in this country, for people from South Africa, but also from people of goodwill around the world who are Christians, to pledge solidarity with them and to be with them on especially Christmas Day, but also to show solidarity with those people in Israel who also fell victims to the violence of October 7th, because in our view, any loss of lives is regrettable at this stage. And the second reason for the visit is simply a desperate call for the end of this war, the end of genocide. We don't want to be in a situation where we found ourselves in the case of genocide in Rwanda, where everybody hoped somebody would do something and call a halt to this, and nobody did until almost 1 million people were killed. And we thought it would be important to just, even if we are powerless and unable to do anything, but at least to signal that the voice of Christians around the world is that this war must end, and that our brothers and sisters in Palestine should know that there are people around the world who care for their plight.
And Reverend, I mean, looking at your press release a bit earlier on, I mean, there's a long list of Christian leaders who are part of this journey. Perhaps just tell us who exactly is actually a part of this visit to, these very important places where you have to go, especially because of the war we are currently witnessing.
Yeah, there are Christian leaders from South Africa, some of whom you may probably know and your viewers may know. Reverend Frank Chikane, for example, is one who is known as a pastor in the Apostolic Faith Mission Church, was for a number of years the vice president of the church, and also part of the South African Council of Churches at one stage as general secretary. And similarly, it was our intention to have the Archbishop of Cape Town, Bishop Thabo Mkhoba, to be part of the delegation, but he designated that the Dean of the Cathedral in St. George's, Father Dean Michael Wheeler, would be representing him. So Michael Wheeler would then be in that place representing the Archbishop, but also in his own name. As most South Africans know, he has always stood with a deep compassion for the people of Palestine. Father Edwin Arison was also part of the Anglican Communion, and some evangelical church leaders who are in there, Catholics. And so it's an ecumenical group of church leaders from South Africa, but they are joined obviously by others from around the world in the Reformed tradition, in North America, in South America as well. And we're hoping to find also Christians in Europe, because as we all know, Europe is almost wholly responsible for the crisis in the Middle East, in the Holy Land, since the 1940s, 47, 48, when the State of Israel was created. It was Europe that was part of the creation of that state, and they knew at that time the problems that they were creating. And so today we were hoping that we would also have Christians coming out of Europe to actually be a part of the delegation to witness against what was going on. So the network of the group of church leaders that are there are from a wide range of churches across the board, from African independent churches to Catholic, Anglican, and evangelical churches.
And Reverend, why is this trip so important to you and other Christian leaders, especially in South Africa, to go and offer your support during this very sad time in the Middle East?
Well, as you might have seen on a newscast in our television screen, there are visuals of very desperate people who are digging through the rubble, digging for what might remain of their brothers and sisters, their families, who are under buildings that have been collapsed by bombings and so on, and often without any help, but just as a sheer sense of desperation. Then it is quite clear to us that in a similar way, at least as we think about brothers and sisters in the faith, because the Christian community is one global movement, we look at those Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank who are under the rubble as our own brothers and sisters. And so to the degree that we can reach out to them, even in some desperate measure, we know we have no power to stop the war, but at least we can try. We can dig through the rubble of all of the politicking, all of the nonsense that keeps this war machinery rolling on, to say, please stop. And so in that sense, we really would like to be counted in terms of people who at least signaled that there are Christians around the world who say this is wrong. We stand with the people who are being genocided by the powerful and mighty military of Israel, coupled with the United States and Europe support. And we believe that it is one of the greatest moral challenges of our time, that so much power is unleashed on so weak a people, and the world just watches and does nothing.
Reverend, as part of this Christian delegation, one would ask that just last week we saw the United Nations General Assembly, of course, carrying out that vote to, of course, have, some sort of intervention when it comes to what is taking place in the Middle East. What is your take on the move so far, particularly coming out from the United Nations?
I think the United Nations, as you know, was set up as a body that would help the global community to never have to go through what it went through in the Second World War, where an entire race was genocided by Germany, it was the Jewish people, but also to make sure that the world community enjoys as much peace and harmony as is possible. But quite clearly, the United Nations has been hamstrung by especially those who have the power to veto whatever resolutions come up, and who have determined to support Israel no matter what. And so in one sense, yes, the United Nations has a role to play, and it is in some way the moral voice of the global community insofar as human rights and justice issues are concerned. But what we have seen over the last several weeks is the powerlessness of the United Nations in the face of the power of some Western powers who reserve the right to veto what the United Nations says and what everybody else says.
Yeah.
And so that's the point in history where we are, where there is no court of appeal for the violation of the rights of vulnerable people. When, a few years ago, when the Western powers wanted to take out Iraq, the Iraqi Saddam Hussein, even Libya, there was a coalition of forces that went in with a mission to stop Gaddafi or to stop the Iraqi president. And one wonders why there isn't such a united effort to stop Israel from continuing what is quite clearly a massacre of innocent people in Gaza.
All right, Reverend, thank you so much for that insight, and good luck on your journey as Christian leaders from South Africa as you make this journey to the Middle East. Of course, they're also stemming from the United Nations calling for that ceasefire. And of course, Christian leaders also calling for an end to the war in the Middle East. That is Rev Moss Ntlha, the General Secretary of the Evangelical Alliance of South Africa.